gets 3 teams in, Allie,
Yeah,
not 4 like the Big Ten, which we were just talking about.
yeah,
Um, is Georgia your like again? We talked about this when we talked about the SEC championship game, but I don't know that I have a pick of like. Obviously, there's so much uncertainty around Beck. There's
yep,
questions. I thought Ewers didn't play super well,
right.
and then Tennessee has been very hot and cold. I
Yeah.
think if Ole Miss would have gotten in, they would have been my pick to like maybe make some noise. But I really don't know. Thoughts on these SEC teams that are in the playoff this year?
I think all of these teams had the ability to make some noise. I don't know that I think I look at this entire field, I've got it sitting in front of me. I don't know that there's anybody that I'm like, oh, dang, that team is running the table, which does make for an interesting, playoff season. I think when you look at that first round, Ohio State, Tennessee is the most intriguing game out of them to me. I think Tennessee has the ability to be so good, but then we've also watched, just moments of does this team belong in the top echelon of the SEC, not even just college football in general, but just even within the conference. I think Texas is really sitting in a good position. They get Clemson first round. I don't think that will be close. And then they get Arizona State, which I also think that they will play really well against. And so I think that's five has a pretty easy path. This year's schedule. And I think Georgia has a pretty damn uh, easy path as well. You're talking about, either Notre Dame or Indiana. I think that they would take care of business against either one of those teams. And then, either Boise State, Penn State, SMU, two of those will play, obviously, Boise State getting the bye. Um, I think there's a great chance we see a third Texas Georgia game, which would
Yeah,
be
I don't know. I'm a little less confident. I think I do think it's going to end up being Texas Oregon. Like I think Oregon. I do. I mean, I think Tennessee going up and playing.
semifinals, right? You think that'll be the semifinal game?
Yeah, Oregon. Like if I had to pick it right now, Oregon Texas would be
Okay.
my semifinal.
Yeah.
I do think Tennessee. They've been too hot and cold for me
Yeah.
to really
I
have
think
a
they
lot of
can beat
confidence
Ohio
there.
State. I don't think Ohio State's great this year. Tennessee,
I don't
Oregon,
either. But playing in Columbus on like a couple days before Christmas, like that.
so
We've
that's
always wondered, like the SEC teams going up and playing in cold weather. I
how
do.
in
I
these
wonder about this.
SEC schools is to never be in a situation to play in this weather. So it is really, a really interesting thing. And, something that I also think we will be something to watch during these playoffs is that, uh, round one, the host schools get this game on campus, right? Which I think is phenomenal. How cool is it that we are going to get to see some of these matchups? Ohio State, Tennessee, and the shoe at night. It's an 8 p.m. game at the end of December. That's what dreams are made of, right? That's freaking wild. I wonder though how quickly we change because the teams that get a bye don't get to host on their campus. So I bet we very quickly move to rounds 1 and 2 being on campuses because it's you get the bye game, but you miss the opportunity to host those once in a lifetime games at home.
Well, I don't know if they can make them both on campus. I think they might flip them because obviously the Rose Bowl and the Peach Bowl, like
Well, why?
those
Why do
bowl
they?
games are going to want to be played somewhere. But I agree. Like I think not that I think Boise State necessarily deserves to host a home playoff game, and maybe the same with Arizona State. But if we were ranking them properly, just 1 through 12, I would just flip it. I would have the first round be neutral site, and then give the advantage to the Georgias and the Oregons and the teams that won their conferences.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that Tennessee. Now I do think Texas wins. I agree with you there, and then I think they beat Arizona State too. It would be pretty surprising to me. Although Texas. I do think that Texas is a little bit kind of like Tennessee. Like they just haven't, they've won the way they needed to. I believe this is the stat that Texas has played 5 of the bottom 7 SEC teams. Like
I believe that's the stat, and I think I think that's accurate.
And then their losses have come against Georgia, which they played one really well and one not so well. The one they did play well was against a backup again. So I don't know. I do think Texas beats Clemson, but I don't know what my confidence level in Texas is, but I like them against Texas and Arizona State. I think Ohio State wins though. I think Ohio State beats Tennessee. Um, but I do think that'll be a good game. And then the only thing about Georgia that concerns me is I think Notre Dame wins. I think Indiana's not very good. All this talk about SMU and stuff is, it's all the same stuff I feel like could be said about Indiana. But if Beck is not there, I do think Notre Dame's playing some of the best and I know they lost to Northern Illinois early in the year. I think Notre Dame's playing a lot better right now. I think they're blowing teams out. They're playing the way they should. They actually play really, really well, really physical. They run the ball well, and their defense is good. And if Beck is hurt and not able to play, that's my only concern with Georgia. Because if not, I do think Georgia finds their way. It'll be Georgia, Penn State, and Georgia probably ends up beating Penn State in the semifinal to go to the championship against God knows who, Texas, Oregon, who knows at that point. But if Beck's not there, it could be disaster city, right? Like, we'll see what that Gunner kid can do with a month off, but that's probably the biggest concern at this point for Georgia is just his health. And we probably won't find out until game time on the 1st of January, but that's probably my worry with Georgia.
Yeah. I mean,
I think Notre Dame's playing well right now.
Yeah, Notre Dame is playing well. And I think, a Georgia-Notre Dame matchup is what a great game. I have far more interest in that matchup than, Boise State playing either SMU or Penn State. Like that's kind of, I don't love that. I do think Texas takes care of business against Clemson and Arizona State. Tennessee is more my wild card. I think Tennessee can beat Ohio State. I think playing up there, we don't know what the weather is going to be outside of cold. Right? Theory, no, I don't know. 8:00. I know Ohio State's going to be excited to have a night game. They've played all those noon games this year. Tennessee's not going to be intimidated to play in a stadium of that size. They play at a stadium that size at home, right, on a weekly basis. But that's going to be an interesting one. That's definitely the bracket that I think is the hardest. I don't know. Whoever comes out of that bracket has the hardest run, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to think that Clemson is going to. But again, this is why Clemson shouldn't be the 12 seed, right? Put Boise State at the 12 seed. Texas, and we both think Texas is going to beat Clemson. But Texas having to play Clemson first round instead of Boise State first round, like that is infinitely more difficult. Like Clemson hasn't been a great team at all this year, no doubt. They still recruit so well, and there is enough talent on that Clemson team to where they can make that a game. And where honestly, it should be a pretty entertaining one for at least a half. Whereas the Boise State game would just be over by half, by the first quarter, and Texas would just move on. Obviously playing Clemson is much tougher than playing Boise State round one. Yeah. And so, can Clemson pull an upset? I don't know. Probably pretty unlikely. I think they're like an 11-point dog, so not impossible, but certainly not going to pick them. But, out of Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, there's the Texas-Oregon matchup to me would be the most fun, though. Yeah. Like that, give me the best from the Big Ten, give me this SEC team, and go from there. That would be what's fun. And then the same thing over here. I think that if Beck is healthy, Penn State, Georgia is probably the most fun. Like Penn State actually looked pretty good last night.
Gunner looks pretty good. I don't know that Beck has been such a roller coaster this entire season. I don't know that I think it's as big a loss as people think it is. I don't know.
I think with an entire month to prepare
I think Kirby Smart could get anybody ready with an entire month to prepare.
Yeah, I think a defensive coach, though, with time to prepare, like you had to play Gunner with no notice.
Did you find it somewhat ironic that they sent out a one-armed Carson Beck instead of sending out a Jaden Rashada for
I don't know why they didn't just call a timeout, because you obviously get timeouts in overtime, but you call a timeout, you get, the player can go in. But I would have thrown the ball. I'd have done a pitch play or something, just to rub it in. But yeah, I don't know. Who's your pick to win it at this point? This is tough. Okay, before you give this, I am not a fan of the 12-team playoff at all. I think it's stupid. This 12-team playoff is going to be so much fun. Like even these matchups we're talking about, like we think Texas is going to win. That's still a pretty fun matchup. Like
right?
Texas Clemson's really fun. I think SMU Penn State's really fun. Like two offenses that just were going off last night. I think Tennessee Ohio State is fun. Indiana Notre Dame doesn't excite me a ton.
I would go to Ohio State Tennessee. Like if somebody was like, which of these first rounds do you want to go see? I would get on a plane and
I go to Texas.
The other in a second.
I'd go to Texas. The other three are too cold. Um,
Because I've
but
seen Texas this season, so I'm ready for something else. But I just think, like, I don't know. That is what college football dreams are made of for me. December in the shoe, a Big Ten SEC matchup that we almost never get to see. I'm down for that.
so who's winning it?
It
You
doesn't
picking
even
Georgia?
what
Who's winning this thing?
at this moment I'm going to say Georgia, but I don't honestly. I think there is probably 3 to 4 teams when I look at this that have the ability to win it.
Yeah, I'll. I don't know. This is tough. I'll take. I don't know. I'll say Texas or whoever wins between Texas and Oregon. To me, wins it. But I'll lean Oregon just to go anti SEC for you.
Of course, always
I'll
want to
take the team that's 13-0.
see.
Really going out on a limb there.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.